Hi everyone, we are live. Welcome to the 2026 session. It's exciting to be back together. I don't really have a lot of announcements, so we're going to get right into what we're doing this morning. I thought it was important for us to talk about the priorities as we start this session. Hopefully a lot of you were at the press conference this morning. I was able to give a high-level overview of some of the things we're working on, but what we've asked is that the chairs who are able and here to do a brief overview about what their focus is going to be for this session. And then I think what I'd like to do is allow that to happen and then potentially take a couple questions. We do have a couple bills we're voting on this week, so I'm just waiting for Martin to show up, and then we'll switch to him. And I should probably stop and say, for the public viewing, welcome to the House Democratic Caucus. I'm Lori Houghton, the House Majority Leader, and I serve Essex Junction. So we are going to get started with Alyssa Black. And chairs, we will bring the microphone to you. You can stand wherever you want.
Great, thank you. Is this the word one that's working? Thank you. I'm Alyssa Black, Chair of House Healthcare. So I've been reflecting a little bit that today is January 6th.
Everyone here?
26.
Yeah.
And January 6th of 2021, I was sworn into the legislature for the first time. It's also another fateful day for other reasons. But I remember in the first week of Healthcare 101, I remember Nolan Langwell, our JFO, sat up in front of us with a slide that said that the state of Vermont spends $6.5 billion a year in healthcare. $6.5 billion. 5 years later, we're over $10 billion. $10 billion is what we spend in healthcare on the state. It is not that it is unsustainable. It's a crisis. It affects our communities. It affects our constituents. It affects our small businesses. This can no longer go on. Last year, we did a lot of things. Thankfully, nobody was actually really paying that much attention. So thank you very much in your trust in our committee. But we did a lot of things to try to rein in the cost of care. For anyone who attended the joint session that we had, Chair Owen Foster from the Green Mountain Care Board, somebody asked a question about, why are we so high in Vermont? There are a myriad of reasons, but ultimately, the cost of care in Vermont is high because we have the highest prices in the United States. We have to bring down the cost of care. We have to bring down prices. We've set a lot of things in motion. Act 167, my first term, Representative Houghton, I remember her, it was her bill that she worked on, set in place hospital transformation, Act 167. We are still working on that. A lot of the session will be spent in oversight and accountability. We have to finish this process. We have to right-size our system. We have to get hospital costs under control. And we're going to be doing a lot of oversight, a lot of accountability in the things that we've already put in place. Last year, we put in place reference-based pricing. Green Mountain Care Board is to develop and start reference-based pricing, starting with hospital fiscal year 27. That is in less than 10 months. Hospital budgets run October to October. October, they need to have in place that. We will be spending a lot of time with Green Mountain Care Board to ensure that they are starting reference-based pricing. Last year, we did a little tiny dipping our toe in, and the legislature mandated that hospital outpatient prescriptions of pharmaceuticals must be capped at 120% of the average sales price. That was a good start, but it is not finished. In addition, we have spent an awful lot of time trying to rein in hospital costs. What we haven't really done is we haven't invested in our system of healthcare outside of hospitals. One of the reasons why hospital care is overinflated at this point is that there's not a robust system of care in place to ensure that Vermonters are getting the right care in the right setting at the right time. So we will be spending, I know, an awful lot of this session in trying to bolster our system of primary care outside the hospital setting. The Rural Health Transformation program from the federal government, I don't know if you all have heard about I believe it's $195 million that the state of Vermont will be receiving this month. I want to be really clear about this $195 million. It must be used for exactly what the federal government has approved us to use it for. Frankly, the legislature won't have much to say about what it's being used for. It's a grant, so it will probably go through joint fiscal committee. But it has to be used for very specific things. And so I don't want everybody to get too excited about it, thinking that we're getting this huge chunk of money. I also want to remind people that the federal government through HR 1, there are massive cuts coming, and this money doesn't even begin to make up what we're facing in federal cuts through Medicaid. So also a couple of other things that we're, when you spend enough time in healthcare and the dollar amounts are so huge, there's always someone coming in, pulling off pieces of those dollars. And one thing that we really want to concentrate this year is ensuring that the people who are delivering healthcare are the ones that are financially, that we are using our scarce resources to reward those people and not shareholders, not private equity, not investors, but that our limited resources are actually going to the people who deliver healthcare. So we'll be concentrating on that as well.
Thank you. That was fantastic. Human services.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Teresa Wood here from Human Services. And there's a little bit going on in Human Services, as you might imagine. So I'm just going to kind of run down some of the major things that we're going to be tackling this year. One of the top things is around homelessness. You heard H91 being recommitted back to our committee this morning. We'll be taking some of H91. We'll be looking, you'll see a bill being introduced by Representative McGuire and myself that incorporates some new ideas and we'll be formulating a new homelessness response bill this year. If you've been watching the news in the last 24 hours, you know the CDC has issued some new recommendations on childhood vaccines. We are taking up a bill first off this week, starting this afternoon, H545, around childhood vaccines and how to respond in Vermont to the ever-changing landscape at the federal level. So That is a bill that we will be taking up. We are taking up this week. Look for potentially to pass out by next week. So that's a bill that is going to be moving along pretty quickly. Child welfare, we have a myriad of issues in child welfare, not the least of which is some juvenile justice issues around programs and facilities for youth who have and are impacted with law enforcement, and how we are trying to assist them on a better path in life. And we have yet to develop a full replacement for what used to be provided at Woodside. And so that is a continuing issue for us in my committee. We'll be looking at long-term care and payment reform that affects older Vermonters and people with disabilities. Those will be issues that we do on an annual basis, but are of particular concern. And I have received comments from a few folks in the caucus around the payment reform initiatives that have been begun by the Department of Disabilities, Aging and Independent Living that are having some pretty dramatic impacts in our designated and specialized service agencies, as well as for the people that are being served in Vermont. We have a small thing, childcare licensure, childcare professional licensure. That is something that the Senate passed last year. They included it in a bill that went to GovOps. We took it out and are handling it as a separate issue. Senate will take it up first, and then it will move to the House. It's a fairly controversial issue. There's folks on multiple sides of this issue, but it is something that the Secretary of State's office is looking to see happen. Pre-K, our committee's intersection with education has to do with pre-K and the mixed delivery system that we have that includes private and public providers. And so we'll be part of that education discussion, particularly around pre-K. And impacts of federal actions, multiple impacts of federal actions. Saw the vaccination one just in the last 24 hours. SNAP requirements, childcare payments are being frozen right now because of the issues that the federal administration believes are happening in Minnesota, and they've started an investigation in California and a couple of other states. So there's a move to freeze federal child care payments to all states, pending our ability to prove that we're doing oversight. The good news is I really do believe in Vermont, we do a pretty darn good job of that oversight and accountability. Yet we really don't know what adequate proof is going to be yet. So SNAP, I think people have, if you were following along this fall, you know about all the issues that occurred with SNAP, and that's ongoing. Those are ongoing issues. So our responses on the federal level will be also keeping us busy because they impact all the people that we serve in House Human Services. And then last and certainly not least, our committee makes recommendations to the Appropriations Committee. And I know we kind of get, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of it, but people think we take up too much time with appropriations because Human Services got a big chunk of the budget, but we always appreciate the opportunity to provide that feedback and input to the appropriations process. We take that really seriously in our committee, and we will be meeting with the three departments that we have primary responsibility for: the Health Department, Department of Disabilities, Aging and Independent Living, and the Department for Children and Families. So that's just gives you an idea of the topics that we'll be covering this year.
Great, thank you. Next, we're going to turn to House Environment with Chair Angel. And just remember, we won't get too much.
Oh, I see how it is. Your House Environment Committee is going to continue to be the stewards of a healthy environment for Vermonters this session. And what we're going to do, we're starting off looking at 10 years since the Clean Water Act the Vermont Clean Water Act that is, passed. So we're gonna be starting that this afternoon, looking at where are we at with phosphorus reductions, kind of our schedule, and what are we gonna do to improve that if we need to? Looking at how that is working with clean water service providers. You might be hearing some from your constituents on that. We're gonna follow up on the CAFO work that we did last year in conjunction with House Ag. That's concentrated animal feed operations for those of you who don't live in the world of water. And making some changes that the EPA actually has requested for that to continue to support our Clean Water Act. We're going to be looking at the executive order, in particular the piece on wetlands, and looking at how that we believe conflicts with state statute and does not support the work that we've done in the previous biennium with the Flood Safety Act and our desire to protect wetlands further. We're going to also be looking at we're having a joint hearing to do oversight and understand where the Land Use Review Board is. We're having a joint hearing with Senate Committee on Thursday morning. In conjunction with that, we're going to be also receiving a report on consultant bid for updates to the bottle bill. So we'll also be doing solid waste. So we're going to do water. We're going to do some land use and we're going to do some solid waste. And in solid waste, there's a couple of proposals there with updates to the structure of how we receive bottles, the bottle bill, but then also possibly taking up the tire EPR, extended producer responsibility for that. And then we will be looking at state wildlands designation. So we're supporting the work we did basically through Act 181, the large changes to the land use that stood up the Land Use Review Board for Act 250, also Act 59, which is our conservation for biodiversity goals bill, establishing hopefully a state wildlands designation. We do not have one now, and I'm sure lots of other topics along the way. Thanks.
Great, thank you. So now we're going to go into that corner because there's quite a few chairs over there. So if grab the microphone, pass it, introduce yourself, do your priorities, and then pass it to the next chair, please.
Okay, I'm Kathleen James, Chair of House Energy and Digital Infrastructure. And we have got a lot of oversight work that we're going to be doing this year and some bills that we need to pass. And just a reminder for everybody in the room that when we work diligently to put thoughtful policies in place that move Vermonters to clean, renewable energy, that is a core affordability issue. Durable energy affordability is achieved through clean, renewable energy, not through fossil fuels. And so when we do that work, it is primarily a bread and butter kitchen table issue for Vermonters. So that is just a reminder of why we do the work we do and why it matters so much. We're going to kick off the year with oversight on a couple of issues that have been in the news or have come across our desk. We're going to be taking some testimony next week on the fiscal health of our municipal utilities. I'm sure folks have read about Hyde Park, seen the articles about that. So we're going to take some testimony to learn about how our muni utilities regulate their finances. We're going to be taking a look at Consolidated Communications or Fidium Fiber. They received approval from the FCC to discontinue their copper wires, their legacy voice system, not always with great impacts on some Vermonters. So we're going to be getting some testimony on that. And today we're going to hear about weatherization funding, what impacts from the federal government and where things stand for our weatherization money here in Vermont. We have some really important bills that have been delivered that we have, important reports that have been delivered that we're going to take testimony on. And we've got either a bill to come or a bill that's been introduced anticipating the report or a bill that's bouncing off the report. One of those is a recommendation from the Agency of Natural Resources that we stand up a more robust framework here in Vermont for reporting on our fuel emissions across all sectors, transportation and heating. That would give us the kind of data we need to develop thoughtful climate policies that work for Vermonters. The PUC delivered a report on Vermonters' energy burden. We'll take a look at that report, see if there's anything we need to do bill-wise. And we're gonna hear from the, Building Energy Code, where's that one I needed? Building Energy Code Working Group. Yes, to hear about our residential, building energy codes. We'll be hearing from the Agency of Digital Services. That'll be something that we will keep doing all session long. We're gonna be checking in on the status of these big, expensive projects as they grind forward in an attempt to modernize and update some of our really important state IT systems. Another issue that we're gonna dive into that I think is gonna be really interesting is data center siting, SITING. There's some bills on the Senate side to put a moratorium, I think a 5-year moratorium on the ability of any data center to site in Vermont. And then we have an alternative approach to look at that would instead be more proactive and say, if a data center ever wants to come here, and just to be clear, I'm not aware of a data center. No one's been contacting me anyway, but it's an issue around the country. And I think we all know why it matters so much. They can gobble up a lot of energy. They can be destructive to the environment. And so we've got a bill that's going to be introduced on the House side that would instead look at, well, if a big data center ever wants to come to Vermont, what guardrails would we put around that? What will we require them to do if they want to be here? And like I said, that's just an exercise in trying to look down the road and see around the corners. Another one, and then I'll move on, because we have a lot of little small interesting bills that are all around energy affordability and making affordable energy more accessible for Vermonters. None of them are real barn burners. But I will say Title 30, Section 248A, that is the area of statute that lays out how the PUC approves certificates of public goods, CPGs, for telecoms facilities. So how they consider and approve or deny telecoms towers. And that sunsets this year. So we need to deal. Thank you.
I just want to remind everyone, we have about half an hour till we want to get people to lunch. Everyone has been great, and these are all important issues that we need to shorten, so top priorities, please.
Okay, I will take that to heart and leave time for my colleagues. So Representative David Durfee of Shaftesbury, Chair of the Agriculture, Food Resiliency and Forestry Committee. It's been a tough year for farmers, another tough year for farmers, for a couple of reasons. Fiscally, at the federal level, there have been some impacts, not just on Vermont farmers, but across the country, all states. And we've had our own weather, climate-related issues over the years. This year, it wasn't too much rain, it was too little. So the drought has had a big impact. The Agency of Agriculture did an extensive survey. We're going to be hearing the results of that, or an update on that tomorrow. Pivoting to the forestry sector, dry weather is good for loggers, but tariffs are not. So there's been an unprecedented ability to get into the woods and harvest over the past 6 to 8 months, but now we're finding that the mills they're not interested in buying the logs that have been cut because they're backed up because they're having trouble selling their product for tariff reasons. We, at the very end of the last session, were informed of a Supreme Court ruling that's going to affect probably all of us in one way or the other. Over the years, it's been understood that state law basically prevents towns, municipalities from regulating agriculture. And a case that we're all familiar with, not going to mention it, but we're all familiar with it, made its way to the court, and the court said, actually, no, we don't think that that's the way that we're interpreting the law. So There's been some work done over the course of the summer. We're going to be taking some we're going to take some testimony and having some hearings to see whether we can come up with some compromise language that satisfies both towns and farmers. So stay tuned for that. We're gonna be looking at pesticide issues in a number of cases, including possibly PFAS and pesticides. EPA has signaled that it's interested in allowing PFAS and pesticides. We want to understand that better. We're going to be continuing to look at the welfare of farm workers. As you all know, I think our dairy industry is heavily reliant on immigrant farm workers, many of whom are not documented. We took some testimony in November from various organizations that told us that over the last 7 or 8 years in Vermont, those workers have become much more comfortable about living their lives and less in the shadows and more openly. And that's suddenly become not the case. So we're going to not lose sight of that and of those folks. I think that's it.
Yes. Okay, seriously, 2 minutes. Let me stand up and cut people off. Start my time.
Sure. Mark, Chair of the General Housing Committee, welcome everybody back. With anticipation, maybe a little bit, but it's working for you. First of all, I just want to thank many of you for talking to me about your housing ideas. Keep it coming. This is an area of importance, kind of base importance. We're going to kick off the session with hearing perhaps 20 witnesses on the subject of what is working, what is not working in our current housing legislation, and what should we do. And we really told witnesses, whatever you want to say, whether it's regulatory, financial, or whatever it is. And it's not what's wrong. We all know housing is too expensive. There's not enough of it. So the question is, what do we do about it? And that is far from obvious in many situations. We will concentrate on making housing more affordable through improving finance. We'll work on manufactured housing and off-site prefabricated housing. Manufactured housing, which you think of as single wides and double wides, is the only housing in Vermont which is affordable without subsidy. And that's important for us to think about and do something about. We're also gonna, I hope, it's my hope, depending on Senate action, and we're working closely with the Senate, we'll be working on landlord tenant issues as well, looking for something that's fair to both groups. What it's important to understand is the nature of the housing problem is that it impacts so many committees here. I mean, it impacts human services and ways and means and environment, and of course, appropriations and economic development. And so it's kind of spread around all of us, and we have to think about that all the time.
Perfect. Emily?
Hi, everyone. Emily Kornheiser, Chair of Ways and Means. As with a lot of other committees, we're going to spend a significant amount of time responding to federal action, specifically the federal law that I'm not going to name, that passed this summer. And some of that is really looking at the particular changes in the federal tax code and how they were further handouts to corporations and the very wealthiest few in this country. Some of that is looking at our overall revenue picture in Vermont and how that's changing in the face of increasing pressures across our entire system, as so many of my colleagues have always said. So that's going to be about a third of our work this session. We're going to spend a whole lot of other time on education finance. Some of that is working on the yield bill and the transition to that is laid out in Act 73. So sort of two separate pieces that will fit together. Short-term work, which we'll be starting tomorrow. Long-term work, which we're going to be starting on Thursday. And invite you all to be paying attention to that. The Act 73 work is going to start off with like much sort of specific pieces that were left for this year to figure out with the foundation formula. And then we'll continue on from there when we get our lead from the education committee. The last piece of our work, probably the last third of our time, is going to be spent supporting all of you as you send bills to the Ways and Means Committee to make sure that we have the revenues to support the work that you all do, and that we have a tax code and a fee schedule that is fair to Vermonters as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
Came in under. She gave Robin 15 cents.
Thank you, Robin Shy, I'm Chair of the House Appropriations
Oh, me too.
Committee. Our two big bills every year are the Budget Adjustment Act and then the next year's budget. So with regard to, I'm not going to talk about the BAA at this point, but the FY 27 budget, we will hear from the governor, his proposal for the budget on January 20th, and then we will know what's in that and we'll work from there. This year, we had a different kind of letter sent out to the agencies and departments asking for much deeper information than we have gotten in the past, actually useful information that can help us make some decisions. There's more accountability. We'll be reviewing programs. We'll be asking committees to review programs. The committee chairs already have this letter and they'll be asking. So we'll all be asking, I think, better questions to understand the programs. Are they effective? Do we still need this program? Do we need to tweak it? Is there something better? Are we solving the right problem that we need to be solving? This is going to be under a backdrop of a tough budget year. We know people have talked about federal funds. We also know that in November, our revenues were lower than projected. 1 month doesn't make a trend. November was an odd month. We don't know what that's going to look like, but next Thursday, January 16th, Friday, January 16th, we are going to have, the emergency board's going to meet to get, hear the updated revenue forecast. That's going to be very telling. So that's going to drive a lot of our thinking when we get that information. And the other thing that we haven't talked about is the continuing resolution that was passed after the last government shutdown only goes till January 30th. So there could be another government shutdown. I don't know anything, but that's something we also have to keep in mind. So those are the kind of things that we're thinking about. I also just want to remind you of what I said on the floor. We're going to have 2 budget workshops for House members. This Friday in room 10 at noon. You can bring your lunch. It'll be the first one, and then 2 weeks later will be the second one. I'll be sending out an email once I get out of all these meetings so that you can all sign up for it. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Robin. All right, Karen, we're gonna go to Phil, who's gonna talk to us about transportation.
I don't have a training around transportation. Real quick, I think the community should focus on the transportation revenues and ensuring we have enough revenues and they're not so that those revenues are used for transportation, because for every dollar of those revenues, we get about $5 in federal money, which is what we need to do transportation. Once we know what we have, we'll work on some of the programs, and it goes way beyond just roads and bridges. It is the transportation that people, public transportation that Vermonters use to get to work. It's transportation programs that get elderly to their doctor appointments. So those are the things we'll work on, but the real focus is ensuring we don't lose our federal money. We have enough to capture and leverage that.
Perfect, thank you, Phil. We're gonna go to Matt.
Thank you, Representative Byron, House Government Operations, Military Affairs. The first major priority we have in front of us is the election for Vermont's action in general. This is the first time that this has been an open election since 2019. So a lot of new members have not seen this, newer members. So we are here to educate on the process, answer questions. We will be holding a joint hearing next week with our counterparts in the Senate, and there will be a caucus poll the following day. So that is on the 13th and the 14th. Continuing work on government accountability, 867, we worked on last year, and in the off session, members of the committee have been working diligently with the agency administration, JFO, and the auditor's office to find a clear and crisper path for us to work accountability in a more legislation. And finally, just broadly speaking, we've got an eye on elections. making sure that voting is safe, secure, and accessible for Vermonters. So there's a couple of balls in the air on that one, but it is something we are staying keenly aware of.
Great, thank you, Matt. Before we go to Peter, I also want to say, next Wednesday, after the floor, we have 3 p.m. on the floor. After the floor, there will be a caucus of the whole to talk about the process for the, and I cannot, general. Adjutant, I'm gonna keep trying that. General, process. So hope everyone will stick around for that. Peter.
Hi, everybody. Peter Collin from Cornwall, Chair of the House Education Committee. You probably all know what we are going to be working on, which is this sort of continued work on Act 73 and its sort of arduous journey forward. Really beginning this week with lots and lots of reports. We have the report of the Redistricting Commission. We have the report of the Commission on the Future of Public Education. We have some AE reports to hear from as well. And you know, we are going into this as a committee saying everything's on the table. That means things you're gonna like, things you're not gonna like, such as the way with education policy. But we really are going to be 11 people sort of working our way through what is proving to be a very challenging process. And hopefully coming out of it at the end with something that both Vermonters and we and the governor can find to be acceptable and help really provide greater opportunity at a cost Vermonters can afford in our public education system. We're also going to try to walk and chew gum at the same time. We have some other things going on. There's some higher ed changes at the federal level that require some assistance at the state level, actually from the Department of Labor, not the Agency of Education. And then there will be a number of smaller issues that continue to hang out there, such as PCE remediation funding, and just further work on some of the other things that you've all heard about over the years. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Please give the microphone to Martin. Who's hiding back there? 2 minutes. We got you, Martin.
Good morning. Martin Lowe, Chair of House Judiciary Committee. So our work is going to continue on looking at ways to improve public safety. And our focus will continue to be ensuring that courts, the criminal justice system is working expeditiously, because swift and certain consequences are the primary way to deter crime. We're going to be looking at victims' rights in the criminal justice system. We're also going to be looking at, and this probably is going to start in the Senate, some issues related to immigration enforcement, such as masking, sensitive areas, and the like. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be looking at a bill related to sextortion. Not going to just define that right now, but keep that out there. Animal cruelty and voter intimidation.
Great, thank you, Martin. I appreciate, is Alice here? I didn't see you. Alice.
Hiding right behind you.
I know. I didn't know.
Yeah, me too.
Alice Simmons, Chair of the Corrections and Institutions. We're a two-pronged committee, we're a money committee, and we're a policy committee. So for the capital bill, we're waiting for the governor's budget. But the capital bill, we're going to be looking and then working with Human Services Committee on finding the replacement for Woodside. We've been looking at that construction project, and that's been put aside at the particular site that they were looking at, so we started from scratch. We also are going to be continuing to replace the women's correctional facility, because the site we were looking at that point was no longer available. So we're back to the drawing board. The other part of the capital bill that's important, and talking with Representative Middlebury, is clean water.
Oh, me.
We put in money in our capital budget for clean water, so in going over clean water, it's going to look at what we've done in terms of capital budget. The other piece is corrections. I'm hearing from the administration that there may be some initiatives to roll back some of the programming and some of the work that's being done within corrections. And how that's going to impact our population, because right now our population of incarcerated folks is increasing, and we have a lot of pressures on our facilities, And we're gonna start trying to figure out maybe some initiatives that we can help with that. And the other little piece is we do house ICE folks, and I'm sure that's gonna be coming up to the top.
Great, thank you, Alice. I think I got everyone. I appreciate all the chairs doing this today. I think it's important for us to lay out what our priorities are as we start the session. I'm gonna turn to Martin because we do have some bills on the floor this week. If we have time, we'll have questions, but otherwise, reach out to committee members, talk to chairs if you have thoughts, if you have questions about anything that's happening. And obviously, leadership is always here to support you.
All right, we have two bills that I'm hoping that we're gonna vote out tomorrow. I'm gonna describe one of them very quickly and then turn it over to Ian to describe a second. The first is H28. This is essentially finishing up work that we started last year. Neither of these bills should be controversial. I just doing it. No, there we go. I didn't say they were simple though. At least I didn't say that. All right, so the H28 is a bill that implements a technical fixes to our statutes. Our general practice is when an oath is required in statute. One can also provide an affirmation instead, but there are currently places in our statutes that only say oath. And we want to go through all the titles. We're starting Title 1 through 10 this year, and future sessions we'll get the rest of the titles, where there will be the option of taking an oath or affirmation. Very quickly, an oath is a solemn promise invoking a higher power like God for truthfulness, while an affirmation is a similar legally binding promise based solely on one's personal honor. Both of them have the same weight, with the choice resting with the individual, and lying under either is considered perjury. So hoping to vote that out tomorrow morning.
Great, and the other bill is H409, which is going to be doing two things, hopefully. The first is to allow state's attorneys to appeal a denied motion for a bail revocation. Basically, state's attorneys want to use this motion in extreme circumstances where a defendant has multiple violations of conditions of release, which are impacting their ability to prosecute the underlying charge. And so they want to be able to revoke bail. This would allow them to appeal a denial of that motion, which will move the case law forward and hopefully allow for this kind of motion to be used in a more applicable way than it currently is. You will be familiar with this, I'm sure, because this was in the Judiciary Miscellaneous Bill last year, which passed out of the House and was removed from the Senate's version because they did not have enough time to take testimony on it. The second thing that H409 is going to do, hopefully, is make a technical correction. The current bail statute in Vermont allows for a $200 cap on misdemeanor crimes that are expungible. As you will also recall, last year, we changed the sealing and expungement laws to that list of misdemeanors is now sealable, not expungible. And so we neglected to change this bail cap language. So it currently only applies to expungible misdemeanors in this list, not sealable. It's caused some confusion in the judiciary. And so we are going to quickly correct it to ensure that this unintended confusion is no longer confusion in the judiciary. And that's it.
Great, thank you. So wait, don't go anywhere. So both are being voted out hopefully tomorrow?
Hopefully tomorrow.
Okay, which would mean they would be on the floor on Friday. Any questions from anyone on these two bills? No. Oh, not on the bill. Gotcha. Not on the bill. Okay, we will get to other questions. On the bill, any questions? Okay, if you do see someone in the committee, and can one of you can you give the microphone to John?
Hi, Lauren, O'Brien, Jonathan. Did we hear from House Commerce?
Yes, thank you for that. We did not, and that was because I neglected to include Edie in the conversation. So thank you, Edie, for being put on the spot by me.
Sure, Lee Granning, Commerce and Economic Development Vice Chair, representing Jericho and Underhill. We have a lot of exciting things going. I don't have detail on any of them, and my stomach is grumbling, and I hope the mic can pick that up. We will look at data privacy again. We're looking at updating the registry for data brokers. We're looking at a convention center and how that could benefit Vermonters in bringing in more tourism dollars. We're looking at a lot of different things like that, bringing them in, and that's my very high level short update.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Edie. Again, sorry to put you on the spot. Any other questions about we have a couple minutes, although I know some of us are growling, mine is too. Any questions for any of the chairs on any priorities that were brought up today? Obviously, we're gonna have a lot more time to talk. All right, thank you, everyone. Go to lunch.